Ruby Blair stepped quietly through the gleaming glass doors of the Luxe Orchid Spa, the soft hum of calming music greeting her like a stark contrast to the world she left behind each morning. The spa's polished marble floors and pristine treatment rooms were worlds away from her modest apartment and the small neighborhoods she came from. Pressed into her simple uniform, she moved with practiced humility, her hands steady as she arranged the delicate essential oils on the spotless wooden shelves. The wealthy clientele lounged in plush chairs nearby, dressed in expensive silks and designer scents, sharing hushed conversations about vacations and investments. Ruby kept her head low, attentive but invisible, focusing on her tasks with the quiet dignity that had carried her this far. Suddenly, a sharp crash shattered the calm, drawing everyone's attention. A bottle of rare and outrageously expensive essential oil had toppled from its display, the dark amber liquid pooling across the white marble floor. The scent was overpowering, almost heady, filling the air with a sharp citrus blossom. The spa manager's brows knitted tightly as she knelt to assess the damage, her voice tense as she called for silence. Before Ruby could move, the manager's gaze snapped to her with accusations burning in their eyes. "It was you, wasn't it? Clumsy and careless as ever." A prominent client nearby nodded sharply in agreement. "I saw you near the shelf just moments before the crash." Whispers arose from other staff, some masking judgment with polite concern, others barely disguising their scorn. Ruby's throat tightened as the humiliation flushed through her. The manager's voice cut through the tense silence. "You're done here. Pack your things." Escorted out under a flurry of stares, Ruby's heart ached fiercely. Humiliated yet unbowed, she told herself fiercely, she had not caused this. The truth was still waiting to be found. Ruby closed the front door behind her with a soft click, stepping into the cramped living room she shared with her roommate. The familiar walls, covered with mismatched posters and worn paint, did little to soothe the storm swirling inside her. She dropped her shoulder bag near the cracked window and sank onto the faded couch, her fingers tracing the familiar stitches on the armrest as if seeking steady ground. Her roommate, Mia, looked up from her book with concerned eyes. "Ruby, are you okay?" she asked gently. Ruby's mouth was dry, and she barely found the strength to nod. Words caught in her throat like the spill at the spa, the weight of accusation making it impossible to speak. Mia's face softened, and she slid closer, placing a reassuring hand on Ruby's knee. That night, sleep evaded Ruby entirely. Memories of the spa's gleaming floors and the bitter sting of betrayal played relentlessly in her mind. Every moment etched itself deeply, the manager's cold glare, the whispered judgments, the overwhelming scent of the spilled oil clinging to her conscience, though she knew it was not hers to bear. Her mind drifted back to days when the world felt altogether different. She was once a bright student, brimming with hope. At university, Ruby had immersed herself in holistic health courses, eager to learn how to blend nature and science to heal. Chemistry and plant studies were her favorite, subjects where she excelled effortlessly. But life's circumstances, heavier than textbooks, pulled her from the path. Her mother's illness became the axis around which Ruby's world spun. Her mother, a quiet woman with soft eyes and fading strength, needed constant care, and Ruby became her primary caregiver. Night after night, she balanced medications, appointments, and solace, all while juggling part-time jobs. College was a luxury she could no longer afford. The loss gnawed at her, but her resolve hardened. Ruby took what work she could find, cleaning, waiting tables, odd jobs, bidding goodbye to the scholarship she had won and the dreams that had filled her notebooks. Every day was a struggle, yet she refused to let despair claim her. Then came the serene halls of Luxe Orchid Spa, a far cry from her previous labor, but a chance to put her skills into practice. She had started as an assistant, learning to blend oils, prepare treatment rooms, and provide gentle care to clients seeking peace. Slowly, the spa became a refuge where she could weave her knowledge with compassion. But Ruby's modesty and quiet manner made her easy to overlook, and harder to defend when trouble arrived. Her current fall felt like the pit opening beneath her. She thought back to the moment she first prepared the essential oil shelves that day, methodically lining up each bottle with care. She had been careful, cautious. And yet here she was, branded careless and untrustworthy. In the kitchen, she picked at her dinner, cold bread and barely warmed soup, but the food lacked taste. Small bites pushed around her plate as tears prickled beneath her lids. The smell of essential oils that she once loved now haunted her mind, reminders of a fault that was not hers to own. Mia sat beside her, not pressing further but ready to listen when Ruby was able to speak. For days, words remained trapped. Ruby felt an invisible wall rising between her and the world, the weight of unfair judgment suffocating. Each phone call for job interviews went unanswered. The spa's harsh dismissal had spread whispers into the community, making employers wary. Despite her anguish, Ruby refused to crumble. She remembered the hours she had spent studying aromatherapy online, the notes she'd compiled to improve her craft, and the vibrant hope she once held close. With trembling hands, she opened her laptop and began scrolling through forums and articles about spa safety and client care. Maybe, just maybe, there was a detail she had overlooked, or something in the protocol that could clear her name. The more she read, the more she realized how methodical the spa procedures were: documented handling of equipment, strict client interaction rules, and cameras discreetly placed in public areas. The spill was rare, a costly accident, but surely captured somehow. Ruby's mind churned with fragmented memories of that afternoon, words she overheard, places people had been around the time of the spill. Yet nothing fit neatly into the accusing narrative. Frustrated, with sadness still threading through her resolve, Ruby allowed herself a rare moment to run her fingers through her hair and stare out the window. The city lights flickered, indifferent to the ache of a woman trying to hold on to her dignity. Her journey had been long and hard, from an aspiring student to a devoted caregiver, to a hopeful apprentice in a world of luxury she barely touched. And though she had fallen, the fire to reclaim her place had not died. The next day, she rose before dawn, determined to piece together what truly happened at the spa. Her heart was sore, but her spirit, still burning quietly, would not let her retreat into silence. She would find the truth, no matter how long the search. The memory came to her all at once, vivid and sharp, a detail nudging at the edges of her mind as she sipped her unremarkable breakfast. The rare essential oil had been knocked over in the VIP lounge, just moments after a client, an obvious enthusiast of technology, had arrived carrying a bulky GoPro mounted on a small tripod. Ruby remembered overhearing him chatting about how he loved capturing every second of his spa experience, wanting the full story to share online. Her pulse quickened. Could this be the missing piece? Driven by a mixture of hope and desperation, Ruby called the Lux Orchid Spa's front desk that brisk morning. The voice on the other end was polite but clipped. "Hi, this is Ruby Blair," she began carefully. "I was hoping I might speak with someone about reviewing security footage or perhaps discussing a client's recording from the day the essential oil spilled." A beat of silence. "We're not able to accommodate that request," came the chilly reply. "The incident was handled. No further discussion is necessary." Ruby's heart sank, but she pressed, "I understand, but this could prove my innocence. I was wrongfully accused." "I'm sorry, but management has closed the matter," the receptionist stated firmly before ending the call. Blank frustration swept through Ruby. She set her phone down, staring at the screen as her thoughts churned. If the spa would not cooperate, she would have to find the footage elsewhere. And if the video existed, it must be with the client who brought the GoPro. Pulling up the client's name from the appointment book, the records she had memorized during her shifts 4 days earlier, Ruby searched social media for any hint of the man's online presence. Her fingers trembled as she found an active channel, a budding travel and lifestyle vlogger known for immersive videos documenting his experiences at exclusive venues. Scrolling through the feed, she spotted a short clip tagged at Lux Orchid Spa, shot just hours before the spill. It was only a teaser with no sound but enough to confirm the uploader's presence that day. With a pounding heart, Ruby sent a polite message through the platform, explaining her situation simply and honestly, no accusations, only a plea for help. To her surprise, within hours the client replied. "Hey Ruby, saw your message. I did film during my visit. I haven't shared the full footage publicly. If you want, I can send you the files." Relief mixed with nervous anticipation as Ruby arranged to meet him at a nearby cafe. Their meeting was brief. The client, a casually dressed man with a friendly smile named Marcus, handed her a small USB drive. He glanced sideways. "I've always thought it weird how that spill got pinned on you. Hope this clears things up." Back at her apartment, Ruby plugged the drive into her laptop, opening the folders with reverence. Her breath caught as she began watching the footage, first shots of Marcus relaxing in the treatment room, slowly panning to the shelf holding the fragrant oils. Then, the moment, Marcus adjusting his helmet-mounted camera just a foot away from the shelf as he leaned forward. A sudden jostle, an accidental bump of his elbow. The amber bottle teetered and fell, shattering on the marble floor. The oil spilled gracefully, a dark pool spreading under the bright spa lights. Ruby's eyes flicked quickly over the video, her heart pounding in validation. What caught her breath further was an unexpected glimpse of a woman in the background, a senior assistant at the spa, known among staff as Lauren. Her gaze was sharp, her expression unreadable but subtle enough to betray a flicker of satisfaction as she watched the scene unfold. Moments later, she whispered something to a nearby receptionist, who nodded knowingly. Ruby rewound and played the clip again. She remembered now, Lauren had often been cold towards her quietly, and their interactions had been strained. Could this be more than a coincidence? For the first time since the spill, Ruby felt a surge of hope flood her chest. The truth was finally emerging, clear and undeniable, captured on camera. The next challenge surfaced immediately: how to get the spa to acknowledge the evidence when they had already dismissed her as unreliable. The memory of the manager's icy dismissal burned like fresh wounds. Determined, Ruby composed an email. She attached carefully selected screenshots from the video as a preview, summarizing what the footage showed, the accidental cause of the spill and the presence of Lauren, whose behavior suggested knowledge and possible manipulation of the situation. She requested a meeting, pressing gently for an open and fair reconsideration. Hours passed without response. The spa's silence was a familiar sting, but Ruby refused to wait indefinitely. She knew her next move had to be more direct and public. She had to share what she had found where it would be impossible to ignore. Ruby made plans to return to Lux Orchid Spa during their busy weekend hours, when the lobby was crowded with high-profile clients and staff bustling between rooms. The thought of standing there again, in the place that had so abruptly cast her out, churned her stomach. But this time, she would not be silent. As the morning light filtered through the windows, Ruby prepared herself, pressing her best blouse and smoothing her hair, determination shining in her calm eyes. She walked into the spa, carrying a small tablet. The receptionist glanced at her uncertainly, the ghost of past accusations lingering in the air. Without waiting for an invitation, Ruby approached the center of the lobby, where a cluster of clients sat sipping cucumber water and chatting softly. The staff paused, sensing something unusual. Clearing her throat gently, Ruby raised the tablet. "I'd like to share something important about the incident that caused so much trouble recently," she began, her voice steady. The murmurs quieted. Pressing play, she showed the video. The room's atmosphere shifted instantly, the shimmer of oil spilling, the accidental knock by Marcus, Lauren's subtle, unease-provoking presence, all unfolding in vivid silence. A gasp escaped from a nearby woman in designer sandals. The receptionist's jaw slackened as realization dawned. The senior assistant, Lauren, who had been standing discreetly nearby, turned pale, clutching at her clipboard. Ruby looked out at the crowd. Clients exchanged shocked glances, staff whispered rapidly. The tide of blame swayed away from her and veered toward the true origin of the disaster. As the video ended, the silence lingered before the spa manager stepped forward, face taut with surprise and reluctant acknowledgement. "This footage changes things," she admitted grudgingly. "We will investigate immediately." Ruby allowed herself a small, quiet smile behind her composed exterior. She had reclaimed her voice and her dignity. Now, the truth was no longer invisible, it was undeniable. Though the road to full restoration remained uncertain, Ruby felt the heavy chains of false blame begin to loosen, her resilience finally shining through the shadows of the past days. The atmosphere inside Lux Orchid Spa was thick with disbelief and a sudden ripple of whispered conversations. Ruby stood amidst the elegant crowd, the small tablet still glowing in her hands, displaying the evidence that had turned the tide of accusation away from her. Her heart pounded with a mix of relief and nerves. The moment had arrived to confront the injustice she had endured. Around her, clients and staff exchanged stunned glances. The warm, polished patience of the spa's usual calm was fractured by this unexpected unveiling. Those who had once whispered behind Ruby's back now looked toward Lauren, their expressions shifting from curiosity to dismay. Lauren's face was pale, her confident composure cracking as several clients turned to look at her, their eyes sharp and questioning. For years, she had maneuvered through the spa with an air of superiority, well liked by management and other employees for her assertiveness and efficiency. Yet now she stood exposed, her unspoken scheming laid bare by the silent scrutiny of those around her. Ruby's gaze locked with Lauren's for a brief moment. There was no fear in Ruby's eyes, only quiet determination. Her spirit, previously weighed down by humiliation, now held a touch of triumph. The spa manager, Ms. Carter, stepped forward with a tone both firm and uncomfortable. "The footage unequivocally shows that the spill was accidental and caused by the client's camera setup," she said, her eyes briefly flicking toward Lauren. "We take false accusations seriously, especially when they cause harm to our staff." The crowd responded with a murmur of agreement, some clients nodding as if reassessing their prior judgments. Ruby noticed a few approaching her now, tentative smiles softening their earlier suspicion. Lauren's expression darkened. She opened her mouth to speak but was cut off as Miss Carter continued. "We will be addressing this internally. Any further actions or demonstrations of unprofessional behavior will have consequences." The senior assistant swallowed hard, now the center of the storm she had inadvertently helped create. Her previous confidence had evaporated, replaced by a guarded defensiveness as murmurs grew louder among those who had once respected her. Ruby felt the weight of eyes turning in her direction again, but now they carried a different kind of attention, one threaded with respect and apology. A client with shimmering gold earrings stepped forward, her tone sincere. "Miss Blair, I'm sorry for doubting you. It takes courage to come forward, and your professionalism shines through this." Another client, a well-dressed woman with soft eyes, nodded in agreement. "I'll be booking my next treatments with you personally. It's clear you care deeply." Ruby managed a small, grateful smile, feeling the warmth of genuine support replace the cold isolation she had endured. It was a subtle but powerful shift in her world. Miss Carter returned her attention to Ruby. We want you back here, Ruby. Your skills and dedication are valued. We will compensate you for the lost days and work with you to repair the damage done. Ruby's chest swelled with a cautious hope. The offer to return was more than a job, it was the restoration of dignity. There was still a lingering tension in the air. Lauren, now seated quietly at the edge of the room, avoided eye contact, the crowning possibility of her career crumbling as whispers about the incident spread among the spa's clientele. The spa's receptionist, who had earlier looked uneasy, approached Ruby. If you ever need anything or want to discuss changes that would help staff in the future, I'm here, she said softly. Ruby nodded, realizing the importance of allies, even in unexpected places. Leaving the lobby later, Ruby paused in the sunlight streaming through the spa's tall windows. She inhaled deeply, feeling the scent of essential oils, usually a source of comfort, now mixed with a fresh sense of possibility. Her footsteps echoed confidently down the polished halls, a far cry from the tentative steps she had taken on that painful day. Around her, the well-known spaces no longer felt like barriers but stages where her truth had finally been heard. In Lauren's absence from the gathering crowd, Ruby remembered the tension between them, the silent competition, the unspoken power struggles that had shadowed her days at Lux Orchid. Now, those tensions had shifted, with Ruby emerging not just as a victim but as a force to be reckoned with. She considered what lay ahead, not as a fleeting hope but as a tangible path shaped by honesty and resilience. Before exiting through the grand glass doors, Ruby looked back one last time. The spa pulses with quiet elegance, but now beneath it lurked the reminder that truth would always find its way, regardless of wealth or status. Stepping out into the fresh air, Ruby felt the cool breeze brush her cheeks. The world around her buzzed with movement, but inside, there was a calm that had been elusive for weeks. The tables had turned, not by anger or vindictiveness, but by the simple power of undeniable truth. Her journey through humiliation and doubt had forged a newfound strength. The woman they had doubted was no longer invisible or voiceless. She was seen, heard, and finally respected. Ruby walked away from Lux Orchid Spa that afternoon not just exonerated, but empowered, ready to embrace whatever came next with her head held high and a spirit unbroken. The days that followed the public revelation were a whirlwind of change. Lux Orchid Spa moved swiftly to right the wrongs done to Ruby Blair. Word spread quickly, the senior assistant Lauren had been dismissed for misconduct, sabotage and dishonesty cited as cause. The news carried quietly through spa channels and blossomed into whispers among the affluent clientele who valued discretion but demanded integrity. Ruby received a formal letter from the spa's management, apologizing for the unfair treatment and offering her reinstatement, not just as an assistant but with a promotion to lead spa assistant, a position with added responsibilities and recognition of her talents. The letter was cautiously hopeful, but Ruby needed more than words. She sought actions that matched their promises. When she returned to the spa, the atmosphere was palpably different. The manager, Ms. Carter, greeted her with a professionalism tempered by genuine respect. "We've recognized how important your presence is here," she said, "and we want to ensure this never happens again. Your knowledge and dedication will help us improve staff relations and client care." Ruby nodded, appreciating the thoughtful tone but guarded against empty platitudes. As the days passed, she took on her new tasks, coordinating treatments, mentoring junior staff, and carefully overseeing the handling of essential oils and customer interactions. Her presence brought a quiet steadiness to the spa's rhythm, and clients began seeking her out, reassured by the sympathy that had turned into admiration. One late afternoon, a client with a familiar, warm smile approached Ruby after her session. "I just wanted to thank you," the woman said sincerely. "You showed strength when it mattered. You deserve every bit of this." Grateful, Ruby smiled back, feeling the genuine connection forged through shared respect, not pity. Miss Carter approached with a folder in hand. "We've arranged a small ceremony to acknowledge the incident, your perseverance, and to publicly apologize. It's important our clients and staff hear this." Ruby paused, weighing the invitation. The thought of standing before the crowd again stirred a flicker of old anxiety, but she recognized the importance of reclaiming her narrative fully. On the day of the event, the spa's main lounge was softly lit, filled with familiar faces, clients, staff, and management. The room buzzed with a respectful energy as Ruby stood at the center, waiting for her turn to speak. When she finally addressed the gathering, her voice was clear and steady. She shared her experience, not to dwell on pain but to highlight the power of truth and the importance of fairness. The applause that followed was warm and sincere. Following the event, some staff members who had once looked away approached Ruby to apologize quietly or offer friendship. She welcomed the gestures with an open heart but held firm boundaries where necessary, careful to let respect be earned, not assumed. Meanwhile, Lauren's departure had ripples beyond the spa. Rumors circulated that she sought work elsewhere but was met with resistance, her professional reputation now shadowed by the events at Lux Orchid. While Ruby did not take pleasure in this, she understood the consequences of actions taken in malice. One afternoon, as Ruby locked up the spa after a long day, Miss Carter came to her with an unexpected offer. "We've had a prominent wellness center in town reach out," she explained. "They're impressed by your story and want to offer you a scholarship to further your studies in holistic therapy. It's an opportunity to expand your career beyond this spa." Ruby's breath caught. This was more than she imagined when she first walked into Lux Orchid Spa months before, an invitation to grow, to build something lasting from the ashes of hardship. Her voice soft but certain, she thanked Miss Carter, promising to consider the offer carefully. That evening, Ruby sat by her small window, the city lights twinkling below. She thought about the journey, how far she'd come from being an overwhelmed caregiver to a woman standing proud in a world where she had once felt invisible. The scar of false accusation remained, a reminder to never take kindness or fairness for granted, but it no longer defined her. When the scholarship decision arrived weeks later, Ruby accepted it with quiet joy, envisioning the classes and knowledge to come, each step a deliberate stride toward her dreams. The next morning, as she prepared for work, Ruby looked into the mirror and smiled at her reflection, a woman transformed not just by words, but by actions and respect earned. She stepped out of her apartment with certainty, walking toward Lux Orchid Spa with her head held high. This time, the burden of judgment had lifted, replaced by a dignity born of perseverance and truth. As she entered the spa, the familiar scent of essential oils embraced her, no longer a symbol of accusation but a reminder of healing, a healing she embodied and now offered to others with quiet confidence. Ruby Blair was no longer just a humble assistant subjected to false blame. She was a leader, a learner, and a woman whose quiet strength illuminated the spaces she stepped into. Her story was far from over, but for now, she moved forward, not invisible, not dismissed, but respected and valued, ready to shape the future she had long deserved.